So this is my first crack at a playing with shapes series where I'll pick a song and then use shapes to draw out some ideas that you can use either to figure out this song or to use in your own music in your own way. So the song I chose today is called Heartbeat on Me. It's by a new LA-based artist named Kiana V, and I'll link the song below. So first things first, pause me and go listen to the song. Now, I chose this song because it's just a good feeling pop song, and it's very well crafted, and it also has some R&B infused harmonies that it kind of plays with in subtle ways to create the song's structure. So let's put on headphones because you'll want to hear some of the bass, and maybe phone or computer speakers might cut out a little bit of the juicy stuff. So in this song, the intro lays out 5 chords that are kind of the backbone of the song. So here, I'll play it for you. Okay, so what's happening there? We're starting out with this shape. I'm gonna notate these in 3 different ways. I'll do the shape and anchor so you can get the full pool of notes that you're drawing from, and then I'll also draw out a mode, and then I'll draw out a standard chord symbol. So this chord starts in this shape, and our anchor is here. So that's that gives us the D flat Lydian mode, which means it's a D flat Lydian chord. And then if I were to see this as a chord symbol, like a standard chord symbol, it would probably be something like a D flat major ninth. So that is our first chord. Our second chord, this is a cool one. It uses a second group shape. So our shape is this, loop, and that, and our anchor is here. So that gives us, and that mode makes it a C altered, I'm gonna say C alt chord. And as a chord symbol, this would be something like a C augmented 7 with a sharp 9. Or sometimes you might see something kind of wacky like a C sharp 9 sharp 5 written. But ultimately, all of that means C alt, and it's that sound. Okay, so our third chord takes us right back to the shape that we started in. So here and here. Our anchor note is this, and that's F minor. We go F minor. Now, it's actually an F minor 7 chord here. That's what I would call it. So it's like this. And it's funny because if I saw F minor 7, I would probably tend to think that it was an F Dorian chord. That's usually what a minor 7th, or especially when it gets up into minor 9th territory. But here, this is a pure form, straight ahead F minor chord, truly F minor, because it's staying closer to the shapes that came before it. So there we go. And then we have our next chord, which uses this shape here and this anchor note. And this is E flat Dorian. It's like the song was listening to what I was just saying, because this shows up as an E flat minor 7th chord. So here we have this chord, which actually is Dorian, whereas the last one was minor, even though they have the same kind of chord symbol, a minor 7th. And then finally, we are staying in the same shape as the previous chord, but we're changing anchors. And this is going to give us an A flat dominant chord. And here it's kind of dressed up. I'm going to call it an A flat 13 chord because you have like this kind of thing going on. Okay, so those are our 5 core chords. Right? So now, moving into the verse, that's what comes after the chorus, we kind of learn that the second half of the verse is actually what the intro was. So we're repeating this. Skips it. This is right back to our intro. Okay, so first time through the verse, we kind of had this kind of thing going on, and it brought in the A flat chord a little bit earlier. Second time through was the same as the intro. I think I said chorus earlier. I meant intro. Same as the intro, but it kind of delayed the A flat chord till a little bit later, which kind of propels the song forward. So so that's our verse, and after that we start getting into the pre-chorus. So let's listen to that. Let me in, exactly you in, we'll make promises, at least we know we try, go to the past. Okay, so the rhythm of the changes has changed. They've roughly stayed the same, but there's one thing that I want to call attention to there, and that is that in our C alt chord, and I have an orange card here because now we're in the pre-chorus. That must mean pre-chorus. In our C alt chord, when it repeated, the bass note didn't stay the same. It did this. So it stepped up to this E. And so we're in the same shape as we were with C alt, right? But our anchor note has changed. And so that's an interesting sound. And I'm going to call that, if we were to consider this to be its own chord, which for now we are, this would be an E Lydian augmented chord, and you'd see it written something like a E augmented major 7 with a sharp 11. That's crazy chord symbol. And by the way, if everything above the shape sounds like a weird alien language, you can totally just pay attention to the shape and the anchor, and that's it. So the reason I'm bringing this up is just because it's cool to listen to the different ways that you can kind of voice and color this same shape and this same chord voicing even by putting it over a different bass note, and how that changes the way that it kind of lands on the F minor chord. So you have or. They're very different sounds, right? So you can play with that. Second half of the pre-chorus, what happens? It just kind of skips through the turnaround. So that's our pre-chorus. Next up, our chorus. So let's listen to the beginning of the chorus, see what happens. Actually, that was the second part. So beginning of the chorus. Okay, so first time through the chorus, that was the same, and we didn't step up to our E chord, so I'll set that aside. What did happen, though, especially on the second time through the chorus, which was pretty interesting, our C alt chord, it kind of stayed the same in the bass, but it jumped up to something kind of like, and then here. So when it landed on our F minor chord, I'm just going to redraw this because it's pretty much the same, but we have an F minor chord, so that shape, that anchor, F minor, and kind of giving props to chord symbols here. This was kind of like an F minor ninth. So the only thing that's changed here is that the chord, rather than being spelled up like kind of this, it was like this. And you know, all of these chords, you can thicken them out to use more notes of the shape. Like so, you know, whereas it will play this in the song, you could totally fill out and then have like kind of these like juicier, thicker, meatier chords. But this is a pop song, so we're keeping it clean and sparse, and it's actually really nice how sparse it is. So the way that it voices this F minor 9 is kind of something like just that, and we know that that means minor, and that it's kind of built out of that whole group of notes. Now, what happens next is interesting. When I first heard this, I thought for sure, so the bass, let me play it for you again. Okay, so the bass steps down through this E before it gets to our E flat Dorian chord. And I thought for sure that was going to be an E alt chord. And probably because of two reasons. I had the C alt in my ears already, so I figured, okay, alt's going to come back. And also because there's this cool thing that you can do with minor ninth chords and alt chords and basses that step down. So you can have a minor ninth chord, and by changing only one note, this note, it becomes an E alt, E flat Dorian chord, D alt. So the whole song could have used that, but it didn't. For the sake of argument, if it had, E alt would be a second group shape that looks like this, and this is our anchor. Yeah, and that's E alt. And you know, kind of in the same way, it would be like an E augmented 7 sharp 9 or something like that. But what it's actually doing is much simpler and kind of neater and tastier than that. It's doing this shape here. Hang on, I could draw here. Whoop, whoop. This shape, this anchor, which actually gives us just an E Dorian. And it's voiced really, really chill, like an E minor 7th. So in place of our E alt, we have an E minor 7th chord. So, and that's just going straight to our E flat 7, just like that. And then ending on our dominant chord, although now it's not really stretching all the way up to a 13th. It's doing something maybe a little bit more like, whoops, something a little bit more like an A flat 7th chord. So there's this kind of more mellow change here. F minor 9th, and then just kind of a simpler A flat 7. Okay, so now we have the next section, which is like the second chorus. It's like lots of ooh yahs, or maybe we'll call it a chorus extension. Okay, in the chorus extension, there's only one thing that I want to point out, which is very similar to what happened here. And I'm going to play the second part again on our very active C alt chord. Instead of doing this, right, it actually goes, so the bass goes boom, boom, which gives us this different note. And so that's yet another flavor that we have that lands back on our F minor chord. So again, if we were to treat that as its own chord, it's the same shape, second group here, and this is our anchor note, and this would be like I'm going to call this an E flat Phrygian Dorian chord, which is not really a great name for that mode. Phrygian Dorian I like. You sometimes hear it called Spanish Phrygian. The chord symbol would be something like an E flat minor 13 flat 9, something like that. But actually, you might more likely see this just written as actually a C, like a C alt chord over E flat, something like that. Like you might not change it from a C alt chord, and likewise you might call this a C alt chord over E. That would be a different way to look at it. And you know, there's an argument for doing that, for staying on C alt as your chord symbol, because that happens in other parts of the song. The first part of the chorus, and the pre-chorus, it sort of lingers on C alt. But I think for the purpose of playing around with it, it's fun to think of these as potentially different chords that you can add to your vocabulary. And so that's the chorus extension, and that brings us now to my favorite part of this song, which is the bridge. And what I'm going to do is take all these cards away and just leave our same old original 5 chords. So let's listen to the bridge, and definitely put your headphones on because the bass matters here.
Let you down. Always wanna be around you. Ain't nobody else in town, and you know you're so lucky that you found me. Never gonna let you down. Always wanna be around you. Ain't nobody else in town. When you wake up with your...
Okay, so I'm doing some hand dancing there, but this is cool. Our first 3 chords are exactly what we'd expect. You have your boom, boom, and then that. But then I'm going to shift to purple for the bridge. Then we get something interesting. We move back to our same old shape from C alt, and our anchor note is here, which gives us it's sort of F sharp Lydian dominant, this sound. And that chord would be, we'd call it an F sharp 7 sharp 11, something like that. And the bass kind of does this walk, which is kind of walking up rhythmically through the notes of that shape. And then it lands sort of here, which is going to be kind of cool, coming back to the original shape in our song, this one, except with a new anchor note here, and that's going to give us a B flat Dorian, and I'm going to call that just like a B flat minor 7th chord. So we have that, and then it steps up, and I got an email. It steps up in the same shape, this anchor note, which actually gives us a C Phrygian chord, which is this, except it's also going to be a minor 7th, so a C minor 7th. So this is kind of a cool little thing to pay attention to. And when you see a minor 7th chord, you never know. It might be minor, it might be Dorian, it might be Phrygian, it might be any number of things, and you really have to listen into what the mode is and what the shape is and what the anchor is to figure out its context. So C Phrygian, so we've got that going on. And then it drops down to the like classic tasty pop turnaround, which is actually going into the same shape as our E flat Dorian, but with the same anchor as our F sharp Lydian dominant. And so that gives us an F sharp Lydian chord, which I'm going to call similarly to this, or an F sharp major ninth, but maybe it's a major seventh. So it's kind of bringing us back to where we would expect to start our turnaround, like what we had heard in earlier sections of the song, except with a different anchor note. And then we end on our original shape, and this anchor note, which gives us E flat dominant, and I'm going to call that in this case an E flat 11 chord. So so this bridge is like, it's like the bat signal for music nerds. There's a lot of wonderful stuff going on, not least of which, who knew that when you do like a tritone substitution in a second group shape, you could get an alt and a Lydian dominant. That's cool. And the way that the F sharp Lydian dominant chord sets up or kind of prefigures the F sharp Lydian chord, and how that ties you back into the original chord in the song. It's all super cool, but I'm not going to belabor that, because the point here is to have these ideas that we can just play with. So that's the song, and I'll leave you to go do your thing. If you make something cool with these ideas, post it and tag it, playing with shapes. Since you didn't ask, I'll tell you what I'm thinking of. These changes are reminding me of, do you remember the 90s smooth jazz hit by Bobby Caldwell, the Do for Love? So it's like that song, that's what it's reminding me of. So I'm going to go play with that. Go figure. And have fun, and I will see you next time.